Guys ready? Okay, since we did this Wednesday, I'll just take questions. I really don't have an opening statement. That way we can make sure we get all your questions answered. Nobody has any prepared?
How important was it to stick to routine? I know you practiced yesterday and gave them the day off like you would in a normal game week. Is that important?
Well, we have to, we have the day off policy we have to follow anyway. So in a game week, Monday is the day off. They have heavy academics. It's more difficult to change it and adjust classwork schedules than it is to just stay with the routine.
How different was your normal Sunday practice? How different was yesterday from a normal Sunday?
We did a little more team period just because we've already been in team last week, but everything else was the same. Special teams, running, not as long, very similar, just a little more team because we already done it.
What's the biggest thing you want to accomplish in the offseason?
Well, we tried to look back at areas we thought we wanted to identify where we need to improve, both sides of the ball, really all three phases, and then implement a plan to start that process, get quality reps and introduce Texas, start them on Texas, try to get it on their minds so when we brought them back last night, they'd have some memory to go back on.
Do you look at other guys that extra week in different positions or different, maybe you want to get a close look at this guy, see what he does, and any of that kind of stuff go on or anything?
Not really. I think that people that say that are being somewhat unrealistic. If there were other guys we thought we needed to look at, we would have already done that. And it's not this far in the season. We've been at it August, September, half of October, so 10 weeks into it. We pretty much know who we have out there and the guys that we're working, trying to get them ready for the next game.
Did you get any healthier, or was it hard to read? And you weren't just devastated by injuries, but a lot of guys, aches and pains, missed a game here or there.
Just normal recovery time, more so than anything. I don't know that there's any drastic changes. We came out of the Kansas State game fairly healthy. Anything other time than just the process of rest would be not worth talking about.
You saw it last year with Orlando as their DC, and he's kind of become famous for coming up with a lot of twists each week defensively in his scheme based on the opponent. What's the hardest thing about dealing with him?
I think it's normal game planning. I'm not sure that people that we play would be much different than what he brings to the table, other than Kansas State is pretty vanilla, in my opinion, on what they're doing week to week. These other guys have had different schemes for our style of offense for the last 3 years. We get into games and we'll see things that we haven't seen at times. And I think that he does a nice job of coming up with schemes. It's not any different than what we would do on offense and trying to prepare for them defensively.
Got a chance to read some stuff last week because I wasn't doing so much game preparation, and a lot of people are pointing at the four-hole hole, different versions of playing cover four, crediting Iowa State a little bit with having a spread buster. You've seen these variations of cover four. You've seen a spread buster.
Well, are you referring to Iowa State's defense?
Iowa State's defense, but other people have copied it, and you've seen some of that already. Kansas had copied a little bit of that. You saw them.
Kansas was actually doing it years ago. He's done it, not quite so much with the whole player that you're seeing. Texas runs it, and Iowa State runs it. You're seeing a little different structure that it's kind of turning full circle in the way that the teams in this league are trying to defend this style of offense. And what we'll face Saturday night is very similar in ways to what we saw at Iowa State and in Kansas.
What is the biggest difference you want to see from your team the first half of the season for when you guys play on Saturday?
Well, I would like to limit missed assignments. We've had a number of missed assignments that I've talked about in here over the last couple months that we need to reduce, and there's different ways to handle that. You condense the packages somewhat. Some of it's related to youth and inexperience, and would like to reduce those numbers, and that would give us the best chance to have success. So You know, if you're looking in all three phases, scheme-wise, special teams, we've been pretty good. We've had a couple errors. We've had a drop punt and some things like that we'd like to do better. But otherwise, we've been okay. So we just kind of push forward and polish that, give some of those guys more reps. Offensively, we've gone into games where we haven't protected very well, and then games we haven't run blocked very well. We really haven't put it together in a while, so I'd like to see that. And then defensively, we go through phases where we don't defend the deep ball very well, and then we haven't defended the run very well, and we really haven't put that together, so I'd like to see us do that. That would be a good start.
Caden Stearns is a guy who you guys obviously had connections to. He's had a lot of success early on. From what you've seen, what's allowed him to have so much success as a true freshman?
Who's that?
Caden Stearns, Jordan Stearns' little brother.
Oh, I think he's a good player. I mean, he's very talented and plays in a defense where he has a really good supporting cast, and that allows him to not be isolated as much as maybe other young players would.
Like, they're not, statistically, they don't blow you away, but you watch them play. I mean, it's hard sometimes when you're just looking at, situations, I know, and what they're doing, how they're lining up. But do you see just that they're playing with belief and confidence? Is that something that, is that something you look for when you're scouting to start with?
Yeah, it's interesting. Every year that I've done this, we get the same questions. They're a really talented football team. They have really good players. And the public and the media and everybody buys into recruiting services. Well, recruiting services tell you they're really good. And I think that's what you look for when you see them play. A lot of really, really good players on the field, and seems like that they're playing with more confidence at this time. They've got two quarterbacks that they've had success with. Got a couple wideouts that are, having really good years, and then defensively they're sound. They can run to the football. You're not going to get a lot of freebies on them. They've minimized big plays due to their speed and athleticism.
You mentioned previously that Cornelius was running for his life back there. So what are some things you guys were able to work on in the bye weeks, giving him more time in the pocket?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, at Kansas State we protected pretty well. I had concerns with those ends that they had, but I thought that we protected pretty well for him. There's been other games that we didn't protect well at all, so we got to be careful about trying to get away from what we do and who we are, and just try to get better at it and minimize those packages.
Is that something that's going to be pretty critical against Texas this weekend?
Sure. Yeah, you got to be balanced on offense. We have to protect them at times. They're going to make plays too. They're good players. They have good coaches, and guys get a chance to make plays. So they're going to make their plays. We need to be able to make ours. Offensive football has always been about taking care of the ball and minimizing negative yardage plays, which comes from not protecting the quarterback very well during any time in the game. And so we have to have good balance, and part of that's protecting him.
Does Taylor catch people off guard? He can run, being that tall.
I think he's deceivingly fast just because he takes really big strides.
You mentioned special teams, and you did mention the drop punt snap, but just statistically, and I know Siner over the years has been really good, but he's had two kind of rough games statistically in a row. Because you've got Matt Hockett and he's had some experience, you think about having a punt off or anything just to go into the week to see if you change that up a little bit?
Well, he dropped one too. They both have. So that's something that, as I said last time, I don't ever remember when we've had a punter drop a snap, and we had two of them in a month. So that's a little unusual for us. I think Siner knows that he can punt better, and he will need to punt better. And I'm not sure that that when Hockett was in there that he did anything over a period of time that would make us think that it would be drastically better. Kind of goes back to when people ask you, do you have a reason or other players to look at? We have a pretty good feel for the ones we have. Maybe we're not right in the guys that are out there at times, but they're certainly the ones that we think give us the best chance for success.
Sam Ellinger is a little banged up. Does that almost make it more difficult game planning for which quarterback you're going to see Saturday?
I guess some. The schemes are relatively the same. 7 doesn't run as much as 11 does based on, I think his number's 11, based on, I'm guessing, body structure. And 11's a really thick, strong kid. So they seem to do or have more designed runs for him than with 7. A little bit of difference, but not a lot. It's part of the game. You know, you have to be able to play. We're not going to know who's going to play, would be my guess. And so we have to do the best job we can to try to get ready for both styles.
Mike, you said that the 7 p.m. kick, ABC, you don't want to use that as a motivator, but can homecoming in and of itself with the uniforms, can that thing maybe be an energizer for you guys?
Well, I think playing Texas would be enough. I'm not sure that me telling them, which they're going to know anyway. They know about things before I do, so I'm sure they know about it, and they're aware of when the games are and such. But I would think that they would need to be able to self-start and get excited to play in this game. The energy and their willingness to play hard has not been an issue at all this year anyway. So I would expect them to be really excited about playing Saturday night.
What do you think of the uniforms? I guess they released a video this morning of the complete look, and it's identical to the uniform you put on when you played here.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. You know, they put a lot of work into it. You know, our media people and obviously Justin and the recruiting, in the equipment office, they do a great job. I didn't think they showed enough of me in the video, but other than that, I thought it was pretty good.
How special is that, though, them bringing back not just Barry, but also the War Pigs to commemorate the 30th anniversary?
Well, they should. I mean, we are in the process of trying to change the way we think around here about displaying success. And there is a lot of history in this program over the last 12, 14 years. And even so, when you have arguably the greatest running back or player ever to play this game, and the group that was with him. And so we're working in that direction. I think it's nice to get those guys back.
Like, are you disappointed in your overall defense, or did you know it was going to be to whatever level you're struggling?
Oh, I wouldn't say disappointed. Just what I said earlier, I would like to minimize big plays. Last year we gave up a lot of big plays, and that was one of the concerns I have. We did a better job at Kansas State. This will be a much different challenge with the strength that they have out on the perimeter. And I just want to see some of the young guys that are back there. I want to see them mature quick and compete, which sometimes just takes a little time. So not really disappointed, but I guess more excited to see a change and to see us play a little bit more of a game like we did really against Boise's the last time. We were good against the run, and we gave up a couple throws, but for the most part we challenged the quarterback pretty good and also challenged the routes. That's really what I would like to see on defense.
You mentioned the size on the outside. Colin Johnson and Lil Jordan Humphrey are not exactly two small receivers, and you guys have so much struggled against bigger receivers like Antoine Wesley at Texas Tech and Akeem Butler at Iowa State. What do you want to see from your corners going up against those guys this week, knowing they've already faced kind of those bigger receivers in conference play?
You know, and the thing is their size had nothing to do with them. They're running wide open. A guy could have been able to run full speed under a coffee table and caught those balls. And so we weren't covering them like we should. But those guys are a big physical presence. That's why they've had so much success. And that kind of goes back to what I said earlier. You know, you're seeing really good-looking physical specimens on their team. So we'll have to really challenge them and be in the right location. It's very doable. But we got to practice well, play with a high level of energy. And we have to do a good job up front of pressing the issue on the quarterback to where he's just not as comfortable sitting there all the time. We got to try to move him around and force him to throw on the run.
Your game against Texas last year was so low scoring. Could you see that happening again, or are the teams just too different this season?
Well, obviously, we don't have the same firepower that we had on offense last year. I think everybody knows that. It's not a secret. I would say that they're better on offense than they've been. They may have, for whatever reason, I don't know, identified who they are and what they want to do. And they're in a little bit more of an attack mode. So I would love to see the game played like that. That'd be awesome. But I would say that there'd be more points scored than last year.
Some OSU fans are comparing this season to that 2014 season. In your eyes, what's similar, what's different?
Gosh, I don't even know what year that was. I don't even know who that was. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to make those comparisons. I don't even know who we had played running back then. Des Rowland? Yeah, so, I mean, I would say maybe there's some comparisons, but I would have to sit down and think it through, which I'm not going to. It's pretty much a waste of time for me. But whatever, I guess, makes them feel better. I mean, I'm good.
Is the answer a good blocking effort in the run game for the offensive line? Is it as simple as that about getting Justice Hill on track? Because, I mean, arguably, he's one of the better running backs you've coached here in your time here, and you know, it's key to get him on track.
Well, if you go game by game, like at Kansas State in most cases a run stop defense, and so you can try to force the issue if you want. In order to do that, you need to be, in my opinion, really good up front, and then you're going to have to deal with a halfway player some. So his role wasn't as big of a factor. We can turn a full circle here. You can go back and put a tight end and a fullback in a game, and then he can be, because you can hand the ball to him all the time then. But when you're in a somewhat of a spread system like us, you're going to be a man or a half man short if you're playing a defense that had that style. Now, we had 6, 7, 8 times during that game we had receivers running open. We didn't make the throw. So if we make those throws, then maybe we force him to defend him a little differently, which gives him more carries. The game before against Kansas, we had a lot of opportunities for him to run the ball, so he gets the ball a lot. As I've said since August, once we get going in conference play, you know, he's a guy that you would hope would get 20 to 22 carries a game in order to take advantage of his ability. And if not, you have to throw it to him sometimes. Again, that's not always a given based on how they defend it, but it's a start. So I think if we had thrown the ball a little better in the last game, we'd probably feel a little differently than we do now about him touching the ball.
In that Kansas State game, you saw a lot more two-back sets, Hill and Hubbard, or Hubbard and King. With how talented those running backs are, is that something you want to maybe see a little bit more of? You know, maybe not worrying about having a Cowboy back and one running back, but utilizing both talented backs back there? Yeah,
you know, you're again going back to the same deal. We have that, but they're not blockers like those guys are, so you do limit how many times that one guy can touch. So there's just different things you want to do, unless you want, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, you want Justice Hill blocking a linebacker. So then everybody would say, why is Justice Hill blocking a linebacker? Well, the other guy's got to carry the ball some, because the other coaches know that if he's in the game and he never carries the ball, all I have to do is track this guy. So it's not always that easy, but there are some things we can do, and they're talented, and you try to get them in the game as much as possible. But in most cases, the guy down there calling the plays is going to know that Justice Hill is not going to be lead blocking on a linebacker or a strong safety in most cases.
Has it been more challenging to correct offensive issues because it seems kind of from week to week it might be something different that rears its head?
In most years where we have turnover at quarterback, it's always more challenging. And then we had a little bit of inexperience in the line, then we lost a left tackle, and we moved a couple other people around, and you kind of tie all that together, and it's been a little more challenging to adjust to try to minimize missed assignments.
How much dialogue do you have with your team in reference to things like slow starts at home, and what can we do different? Do you dialogue with them a lot? Any at all?
Not really. We have a committee, and I always have an open door. Any player that want to come in and talk to me or anybody, they can come in at any time. I don't know that I've ever had a player come in and talk about anything in that area.
Who would you consider your backup quarterback right now?
Drew Brown.
How's he progressed over
He's doing better. He's been here now 10 weeks, you know, and the issue we had with him was he showed up right when we started practice. So it's a lot to digest in a short amount of time, especially when you're getting ready to play a game. But he's come a pretty good ways now. He has a pretty good feel for what we're doing in practices anyway.
How has he handled the whole situation of going from a guy who, as you said, he started 25 games to kind of standing on the sideline, being a number 2 for the first time in probably a few years for him?
Seems to be doing good. His attitude's good. He practices hard. He's up to this point been a very loyal guy. He's worked hard.
Those guys are red shirts, he and Spencer Sanders.
What's that?
Are they both red shirts, your backups?
Are they both red shirts?
Are they going to red shirt? They haven't played this year, so you're gonna-
Well, they'll follow the rule. If they're not in for more than 4 games, then they can redshirt, yes. I'm sure they would take their free year.
How much improvement can you sort of expect from Taylor next few games? Just sort of in your track record of developing quarterbacks, is there a jump that can happen in the second half of a guy's first year as a starter?
Well, I think he gets better mentally each week, and throwing the ball wise, I just didn't think he threw the ball very well in Manhattan. I don't know that would change a lot in 5 practices, especially since he's been throwing a football 19 years. So I'm going to guess that the mental aspect will get better each game. Most quarterbacks you talk to, they'll tell you they feel completely different in game 15 they did in game 1. I mean, that was kind of the turning point for me, is the middle of my sophomore year. So it was game 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there. I kind of felt like I knew what I was doing. Prior to that, I thought I was just winging it. I would say that would be accurate for most quarterbacks. I can't speak for everybody. He's really got a good demeanor and a good temperament. He practices well. He's a confident player, in my opinion. So I think that he'll be fine. If we didn't think that, we wouldn't put him in there and start him.
When a program doesn't have the success to which it's accustomed, which you're not this year, sometimes internally turmoil can build up, just frustration. Has that occurred at all, or
Inside the program?
Among your players? Yeah.
I think it's probably occurred. I'm usually as I joke, the last to find out about things, but there hadn't been many things that crossed my desk, but you get, I'm sure you get players that feel like they could contribute more, and how come I'm not getting more playing time or touching the ball more. I think you could have people inside the building that are walking around saying, I don't know why they're calling that defense. That hasn't stopped anybody in 2 years. I'm sure there's some of that. That's pretty much human nature. But I would say that the total volume of that has been very minimal that I'm aware of. And what I do is watch practice and meetings and kind of keep an eye on different things now to get a feel for that. That's really my job. And I don't see a lot of it. And as I said a week ago, Wednesday, that the one thing that I'm pleased with is the effort has not been an issue. So we just need to coach them better. We need to do a better job of minimizing our game plans and getting them quality reps so they can play better, because unfortunately players tell you as a coach how well you're coaching them on Saturday. Whatever they're doing is a direct response from how we're coaching them. I mean, sometimes it's not always good news. And you have to take that and deal with it, in my opinion. That's just what I've seen over 28 years. So what we've done is what I've said for 2 weeks now, is try to identify some things and make it a little bit better each week so the guys can play better. Some of it's maybe too much scheme-wise. Some of it's immaturity. Some of it's lack of experience. Could be different things, youth. But our job is to try to bring it all together. And then after we play this game Saturday night, when we see what happened, the players are telling us how good a job we're doing coaching them. And then we deal with it from that point and get ready for the next game.
One of your players' mother apparently tweeted during the game the other day, play my boy or play my son more. Is the advent of social media and that outlet for parents, does that mean they call the office less? So they just tell the world instead of
I haven't had a parent call me about a playing time situation in, I can't remember. Social media is an outlet for people to communicate. And as we know, not only in athletics, but in politics and every walking part of life can be very dangerous. And the other thing is I was made aware of that because, as you know, good news travels fast. And every mama loves their boy. And they want him to play more, or they want him to get more carries, or they want him to get more catches, or whatever it may be. And so the only difference in anything that's happening in society today versus what's happened forever is now you have a way to make it public. But those things have gone on forever. And it doesn't mean anybody's right or wrong. It just means that people have a way to express an opinion so the world can see it. But we haven't had many calls. I'm sure somebody did, but I haven't had any. Maybe the position coaches get them, and it hadn't been enough to where they'd come to me yet, but I haven't gotten in on any of that. I would rather or deal with the players directly. They're 18, 19, 20, 21, 23-year-old young men. Obviously, they're not mature, but I would rather deal with them than their parents in most cases. I know when I went to school, I didn't call my mom and dad and ask them to call the coach because my dad would have told me to stick it in my ass, take care of it yourself. So I'm just guessing it's best to deal with the players.
I had a softball coach on the college level once told me that parental pressure is the same no matter what level. The difference is on the high school level, those coaches don't have as many people to sort of deflect it and intercede. And this softball coach also said, she was a female, she said, I get a lot more than the football coach because I don't have the staff to be in between. So but you're saying that it's not been that bad over the years.
It's not been bad at all for me. And I don't know, maybe they get the opinion from me. And here's the deal with every parent that's ever called me, I've taken their phone call because that's my responsibility. When we recruit them, we tell them we're going to take care of them. But I'm answering the question directly. I can't remember the last time a parent's called me about playing time. Now, I get called on a lot of other things that I'd love to delegate to other people, but I can't. But I don't get playing time calls. But I never coached in high school. And that's why I've always said I have the greatest respect for high school coaches because they have to deal with that stuff all the time. You have the touchdown club or the home run club or the tip-in club, and if you want people to come and donate money to survive, you have to listen to those people. And so I'm guessing that lady that you're talking to, and I can imagine just in my history of being around females and female sports, it's probably even much worse with that. But they deal with a lot and they have to deflect a lot. I just haven't had to deal with much of that. That would be a good question for some of the assistants if they've had to deal with it. But it hasn't gotten to me in a while. Like the deal with Spencer, I mean, his mom and dad haven't called me. I mean, that's it's not something. I think that's just kind of normal human nature, and we all have to learn to deal with it. Social media is not going anywhere.
Mike, you mentioned last week you meet some with Taylor. You talked about a meeting where he came in and sat down, and you guys kind of go over the game plan. He's a one-year guy in that this is it for him. You've got both Drew and Spencer behind him. Do you meet with them as well, or how much do you get involved knowing that one of those two guys is probably going to be your guy next year?
I've met with Mason for years on Wednesdays. I'm not sure what time, 9:45. And so Taylor comes in and meets with me. That is a normal meeting. That's not a meeting that just started in the last couple weeks. That's been going on for years with Mason and Taylor. And so I don't do it with the other quarterbacks. The reason is because I try to watch defense and offense, and unfortunately I know a little more about offense, and so if I meet with Taylor on Wednesdays or Mason, spend that time with them, then I can get caught up on the game plan by listening to them talk to me, and then it gives me a little more idea of what's going on without watching practice directly, because terminology changes each week. And then I can also listen to them talk to me, and it can give me a feel whether I think they know what's going on or not. And then if not, I can go in there and tell Yursich and that we got serious problems here and you're not doing a good job of this and that. And so he usually knows that Wednesday at about 11 o'clock, if I come in there, that it won't be a fun time and it's not to share a bagel. So that's the reason I do that meeting, but that's gone on for years.
In this age of transfers, especially with quarterbacks, how difficult is it to balance and keep everyone happy?
We haven't had to deal with that yet, but I'm going to guess it's going to be very difficult. And I don't think it's just going to be quarterbacks. I think it's going to be we're in a very liberal system that we've set up now by NCAA rules for whatever reason, and I think that it's going to be an issue that's fueled by social media and different things. It's going to be something we deal with from here on out.
I have a question. Talk a little bit about the Stillwater Pioneers.
They're doing good. The guys are doing a good job coaching. You know, every once in a while on a blue moon, I'd call over if I had a suggestion on punt team or something, but hell, I ain't calling them now. They're undefeated. They're blowing. They ought to tell me to spend time with my own team. But no, they're lucky. They do a great job of coaching over there, and they've got some good players. They're having a good time. Nothing like having fun in high school, playing a high school sport with all your buddies and everybody you grow up with. Those are good times. So I did go to the last game, yes. I didn't go to the Lawton game because I wasn't here, and then I didn't go to the Mill City game because I wasn't here. But you know, they're on. You stream them live. Sometimes it's not real good, but then I can see the game on Huddle or whatever. So.
You watch as a coach or a parent?
A coach.
Do you keep Gunner when he gets home?
I tell you what I'll do. I'll bring Gunner's grade sheets up here and let you answer that. But Gunner doesn't look forward to seeing me on Sunday evening. I can tell you that. So, but I'm out of the parent phase. I do him just as a coach. So, but it's a lot of fun. They do a good job, nice job over there at Stillwater. They're a nice job with those kids. It's been good for the community. You know, it's amazing. I go to the game the other day, and I don't know how many people go to those games. A lot of people go to those games, doing good, and it's got people coming out of the woodwork and going to the games, and so it's a lot of fun. Looking forward to a big crowd here Saturday night. Somebody called and asked about the time. Was that you, Nathan? You call and ask about? Somebody called me on my Big 12 deal and asked me about the game time. Oh, I think that was Hastings, maybe. How come he never comes to these anymore? He's fickle. We lose a couple games, he won't show up. And I think that the evening game for homecoming's awesome because all the work that goes into this. You know, our students here put so many hours into homecoming, and it's not good when it's 11 o'clock. It makes it really difficult. The 2:30 or the night games are awesome. So for the homecoming, for all the work the students put in and everybody, that's awesome, and should generate some excitement for the crowd here on Saturday night. Good gig. Good? All right, thanks.